What's going on, everybody? Gunnar here, and we're doing a continuation of this whole beginner predator fly tying series. And what I really want to do is I want to change the scale a little bit. And we're not going to the fun size just yet, but this is in our future here. And we're actually going to start small. But I just want to show you how to take these techniques, right? So we have our bucktail technique and our bulkhead technique. For this one, I'm going to show you guys how to do a hollow fly technique. So we're going to add to your repertoire a little bit. But we've done the high and tight silhouettes. We've done round, bulky silhouettes. Everything's been kind of baitfish oriented. And then we took it and we did a bullfrog, swimming frog silhouette and a crayfish silhouette. So pretty cool so far. And what I want to discuss is how to take those techniques and downsize it. And so what we're going to tie is actually this little tiny emerald shiner pattern, and it's like a total classic hair wing, like classic trout fly, absolutely picture perfect classic. This is a little 2.5 inch hair wing, and the cool thing about that, and what you have to understand about a lot of these forages that I'm trying to imitate, a lot of them. Basically, the rule of thumb that I like to go by is those details, that high and tight and that tubular round. Kind of the smaller a forage is, or the earlier stages, a lot of times they're less pronounced. And you look at a lot of species like, I'd say kind of like pearl dace and red belly dace, and you get to emerald shiners, river shiners, northeastern sand shiners, all that stuff, and they're really not the extreme of high and tight and the extreme of round and tubular, but they're kind of like just a little bit conical, streamlined, low profile silhouettes. And because I showed this picture, I know somebody's going to ask, but it's fishes of the Great Lakes region. Got it for Fish Bio. And what we're going to do, and we're basically going to take those bucktail techniques. I'm going to show you how to tie these species that don't really fit those extremes, high and tight and round tubular, like scalp and sucker and western golden shiner or crappie or bluegill, and we're going to tie kind of an in-between, nice and small, maybe 3 inch, 2.5 inch, and a classic hair wing style, and how I would go about tackling that as far as the design, so that you can use it for smallmouth bass, trout, and whatever you're doing. So let's jump down here onto the hook and I'll show you guys how to tie this guy up. Alright, you guys, so I'm coming with a size 4. This is an Ahrex classic streamer hook. I'm going to dress this with 140 power thread right up front here. And basically what we're going to do is to get this extremely kind of pearlescent body right up in there. The whole shaft is completely pearlescent, right? We're going to come in with our polar flash. And instead of using this as like a winging flash boo, which we will, but we're actually going to use it to do the entire core of the fly. So I'm going to take that, cut it perfectly flush, catch that with a loose wrap, pull it down the body a little bit, and then physically tie that all the way back to my hook point, which is where I'm going to start. And the whole reason of tying it way up front and then drawing it all the way back is now my body is completely uniform. My hook shank is completely uniform from top to bottom. I didn't tie it in here, and then I have this raised bump and then a weird drop down and my silhouette's kind of messed up. That always bothers me. It's a little bit, one of those things that probably doesn't matter to the fish, matters to the tire. But it's one of those tricks. You tie it in way up front, go all the way to the back, and that's how you get a nice even body when you wrap this stuff forward. And just going hand over hand here, giving it a bunch of tension. I don't really worry if it starts to get a little too wide or unwrap or do anything weird. It's not going to matter at the end of the day. Then I'm just going to pull that back after I catch it, make sure it's tied down twice. Then I'm going to come in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my white bucktail. You want to go pretty darn sparse. I'm talking like 20 strands. And I like it, I keep the natural taper coming off the tail so I don't stack it or do anything weird. Might pull out some long hairs. But I like it to be like 1.5 my shank length. So it's kind of vague, but like there's one and a little bit more. And that's really all I like. I'm gonna give this a perfectly straight cut. Make sure my thread is spun nice and corded, nice and tight. I get a lot of tension on it. I'm gonna put this right up here by the hook eye. Get 3 wraps on it, and you want to go pretty light with your thread up here because we're going to put in a lot of materials right here at this hook eye. And that's that. Like, I just kind of smashed it around the hook. Have very, very light tension on it. And just held it. I have enough thread on there to hold it in place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our polar flash now. Just take 4 strands, fold it over, and pin it right to the top here. Double that over, pin it right to the top there. I'm going to come up to my hook eye, cut that just a wee bit long. So now I have it on the core, like whole pearlescent belly, but I also put it up into the wing, and it's going to meld with that olive and almost create a perfect little lateral line. So to me, it's like belly texture, lateral line. And I like to separate the two that way. Then I'm going to come in with my olive bucktail. And the trick to this one is really just to keep it on top, and they're about even parts. So the amount you do on the belly, which is wicked sparse, it's going to be about the same, but you're going to do this time, keep 100% of it right on top. And it's okay to me if it's a little bit short, but if you can, get them about the same length. Make sure that thread's still corded up. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to come up into my wing. I'm going to cut my bucktail at a slight angle. Tapering towards the hook eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch that. And then that has 100%. As I wrap down, I get fewer and fewer strands. And it creates this nice little perfect leading edge right here. So I don't have this weird wall of bucktail, and then I can tie up into my wing to make sure it's like 100% locked down. Like, don't be afraid to go back and make sure it's 100% good. Because if you don't tie it in right, it's just gonna come out in the end, and that ain't no bueno. And it's okay if this gets a little big, because it's at the end, it's supposed to look like a nice kind of bulky head right there. Then to finish the fly, you'll literally take like 10, 12 strands of Peacock Herl. And I don't like them to be perfectly the same length. I'll tease them out just a hair. But I take these guys. That right there is absolutely perfect. Catch that over the hook eye a little bit. Pull that back right into place. And then wrap that up my nice little thread head that I've made. Trap all that down. Throw a hitch in there. 4-turn whip. And then what I tried to do on the last one, this first one, and when the fly is this small, I don't really worry about the Peacock Herl being curled, but I'm gonna do it just because it was on my mind. And then if you want to know what this is gonna relax to, you can lick your fingers and pull all that back. And so what I like to do, or what I tried to do, I shouldn't say what I like to do, what I tried to do is I actually tried to put a little tiny black pupil on this white head, and my marker bled everywhere and it was a total mess, but I like the way the black head looks. So I'm going to take a chart pack. If you want to try to put an eye spot in there, be my guest. It failed miserably for me. It's basically because my thread base wasn't smooth, because I'm using a thick thread. But I'm going to paint that sucker black and then seal it with some good old Zap-A-Gap brushable. So that is your super classic hair wing downsized bucktail fly. So thanks for watching, guys. That is this ridiculously simple you know, 2.5 inch little sand, you know, river shiner, northeastern river shiner, emerald shiner, rosy face shiner. You take a lot of the forage, whether it's a darter or a dace or anything, and you downsize it to this, you know, 2-inch scale. A lot of that high and tight and a lot of that tubular, it's not as pronounced, and it doesn't need to be accentuated to that extent if you don't have to. And these super classic hair wings, bucktail, a little bit of flash, ribbed, you know, pearlescent opal body, peacock curl over the back. It's like a 5-minute tie, and they're extremely accurate to the size and shape of the forage. And that's really what it comes down to, and that's really what's important to me as a fisherman and as a tyer, is accuracy. And there's definitely a time and a place for big flies. And if you acknowledge that, then you're also acknowledging that there's a time and a place for smaller flies. And even though I'm really stubborn and I like to run my own program, and if they're not going to eat it, they're not going to eat it, and like you have a go big or go home mentality, that means that a lot of times you're going to be going home, right? And so as a fisherman, not just a stubborn fly tyer, but also as a fisherman, it's extremely important to me to just acknowledge that there are smaller forage, and a lot of times that's what's prevalent, and a lot of times that's what fish are keyed in on. And this is a really easy way to take those same techniques that we talked about in the 5-inch range and the 4-inch range, you know, all of your, oh man, give me a sec. Minnow species, I mean, all the adult size emerald shiners are all about 3.5-4 inches anyway. But all your redfin shiner, spotfin shiner, common shiner, striped shiner, western golden shiner, suckermouth stone roller, western dace, creek chubs are obviously pretty big, hornyhead chubs. Pearl dace can be pretty big, red billy dace are a little bit smaller, and then you have obviously all of your juveniles for like suckers and red horse and all that stuff. But you also have, believe it or not, things like trout perch, yep. Killfish, yep. What's this? Top minnow, yep. Black striped minnow, yep. Those are all 4 inches. Plus you have all of your daughters like rainbows, fantails, fantail striped, Iowa, greenside, yep, that one's 4 inches. Slenderhead, that's like 3.5, pretty close. Blackside darter, that's 4 inches, almost 5. So, and I'm reading this book again, right? I'm literally just going through the color palettes and looking at the size references for how big they are. So that 4 or 5-inch range, it's really my favorite. It matches such a wide range of forage species in my area. All of those fish that I just rattled off, guess what? They all make babies, and they're all not mature, and sometimes you're in a system and you have a bunch of juveniles and you have a bunch of yearlings. Well, to adapt from that 4.5-5-inch bulkhead range, which matches a boatload of species, to a smaller range. And all those species obviously have to go through this size to get to where they are. And this is a really easy way to downsize those patterns in a really effective pattern. So that's the classic hair wing. I know this isn't in focus because my face is. So that is the classic hair wing. Absolutely picture perfect. And what's going to be coming up next, and I showed you in the beginning, but it's this 13-inch hollow fly beast changer thing that I've been working on called a Build-A-Beast. So stay tuned, check it out. As always, thanks for watching. See ya.